Right now, we're going to bring in, as we normally do at this time of the week, Dr. John Braccio for our weekly segment. Dr. Braccio from Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing. And we're going to talk this morning about just saying no. Not necessarily to drugs or anything like that, although that is a good idea, but speaking in more broader terms and more generalities. And we're joining Dr. Braccio. Actually, he joins us now on the other end of our line. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Well, good morning, Rich. I always enjoy doing these segments with you when Dave is out.
Same here.
And the word, well, thank you. And the word no is just two letters, N-O. But it is really amazing how people that don't know how to say no get overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. This is something it always amazes me how you can find people that are very efficient, but sometimes their efficiency leads to everybody asking them to do things. Like the old saying goes, ask a busy person to do something if you want to get something done. But when people can't say no, or they feel embarrassed to say no, they feel guilty if they say no, they can really get overwhelmed. You'll find in schools and government, and I'm sure in your offices, people that can get things done often are working way too much, getting way too much responsibility, and they're really not able to care for themselves, often for their children, for a spouse, for the activities and things that they really want to do. So it's really critical that a person really separate in terms of what they can do and what they can't do. And this is just so hard for people to do, but in order to be successful, you have to do this. I was talking to a teacher in the district where kids are projected to go back to school, and she's very worried because she gets so overwhelmed in the school when she's asked to be on every committee, do things, and she feels a responsibility to do it, but also is in a situation working on family, working on just pursuits and things she wants to do. So I think it's critical that if you're overwhelmed, you can't get enough things done, and people keep asking you to do things, you have to learn it's not evil, it's not wrong, it's not a bad thing to be able to say, no, I really just can't add that to the burden that I have now. If I get time, I can maybe come talk to you about it. Don't even leave it. They're going to just keep coming back and asking you for things. So it's really very, very important to learn to say no in a nice way, but you have to be able to protect yourself in life.
Yeah, and that's definitely a tough position for people to be in. And I'm not going to lie, I'm one of those. I don't say no often enough, and I think part of it with me is I just want to be helpful to people. But yeah, I definitely get your point. Sometimes you get overburdened, and that's that's to a fault on my end. What would you tell folks who really have that mindset? Those who want to help people, but in their heart they want to help, but in their minds, mentally, they know that it's not the best idea. How do you balance, the heart and the mind in that situation?
I think you really have to call a timeout. You have to really assess your life, assess your priorities. Okay, what are they? Okay, let's say you have friends, you have family, you might have a spouse, you have a job. You have a lot of things, and also yourself. Don't forget yourself. I like the biblical saying, whether we take it from a secular or a spiritual point of view, but love thy neighbor as thyself. I think you have to put as yourself in there. But I think you have to look at what can you really realistically do. Because you're a good guy, Rich. You like to do things. And actually, I try to be helpful, too.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with trying to be helpful, but if all of a sudden you really want to be doing something like going to an Iowa State game. I know you're an Iowa State fan. And all of a sudden you find you can't go to Columbus and you really want to, because you're doing something back here that someone else could be doing, but somehow you volunteered to do it. And that may seem like a superficial thing, but a lot of times people have to have activities for themselves. So if someone says, what are you doing this weekend? You better ask them, why do you want to know? Versus saying, I was going to just stay home and read, because the person might say, oh, goody, then you can come and help me. So you have to really assess your own mental health. And Rich, one of the reasons this topic is good today is because I'm right now working with a number of people that really is their issue. They're not able to say no, they overextend, and they really need to sort out exactly how to do it. If it were that simple, people would just say, oh, I can just say no. But it really is not that simple. People really, and you know that because they say, like you say, you're a good guy and you try to be helping people and do things. However, you have to make sure your own needs are met. And that's where doing this inventory, what do I need? Okay, what do I want? And you have to then look when someone says, can you do such and such? You've got to be able to say, yes, if you can, and yes, if you want to. And then you also have to be able to say, no, I just can't work that in. There's really nothing wrong with that. A lot of times we've been raised to be the good scout, okay, the good helping person. And that's a wonderful trait. But once it infringes on your own mental health and physical health, which it does with many, many people, then you really do have to be able to say no. And not that you have to give a reason, but you could say, no, I just can't do that now. No, I'm already occupied. No, I've got too many things I'm working with. And make sure you say it in a way that, no, but if I get a chance, I'll let you know. If you say, I can't do it now, then they're going to be back a week later. You might still be by no means ready to be able to help. And also there are times we just need a timeout in our life where we do our responsibilities and then we just do what we want to do. And a lot of people feel guilty if they're doing what they would like to do and someone else is asking them to do something. They really get the feeling that they should set off something they really want to do, and all of a sudden have someone else take their priority. And that really is maybe something you might want to do sometimes, but that is overall just going to have you in burnout and not able to function in life. So the word no is just a word we really have to appropriately recognize it as a big word, an important word, and one we have to be able to do if we're going to have our own good mental and physical health. Absolutely important.
And Dr. Braccio, before we let you go, what about on the flip side of things? What about for those maybe there are people out there who say no too much and they don't say yes enough. I sometimes, and I hate to say this, but I encounter those those people as well. What kind of advice would you have for them, to be a little more helpful? A little more helpful to others, maybe go out of their way a little bit more than they already are.
Well, I think that's an important part of life. I think part of life is giving as well as receiving. And if we are in the point that we just want to receive, it's going to impact us in relationships and friendships and just our interactions, with people. So I believe everybody ought to be part of a team. Everybody ought to be trying to be helpful. It's like most things, though. There has to be the summum bonum, Aristotle's golden mean. You have to do things within reason. And I think unfortunately what we have are too many people that can't say no as opposed to that group. But because they can say no, they always have other people doing things for them. So I think if people actually, and all of us need to examine ourselves and saying, are we doing as much as we can to really make the world better? I don't want to make it too dramatic here. But I do think if we all try to improve the world, improve things by being helpful in addition to our work, but also helping people, the Good Samaritan, doing things that are helpful, that's a good thing to work on. And there are people that I do talk to that say, I really need to be doing more, and I'll talk to them. I'll say, well, look, you can be involved in Scouts, you can be involved in church activities, you can be involved in civic activities, you can get involved in political activities, you can get involved in all kind of reading clubs, stamp clubs. There are many things that you can do and even strive to take more of a leadership and a helpful, kind of a role. But that group, unfortunately, is often quite happy, the group that isn't doing things, and quite satisfied.
That's true.
And even fault-finding what the person that has volunteered to do the work, well, I wouldn't have done it that way. That's another reason you've got to sometimes even wonder, the person who's asking you, are they going to take what you do in a helpful way, or are they then going to complain, well, I wouldn't have done it like that. I don't like that table, and here you make a table for them. So I think there are a lot of facets to this whole thing, Rich, but I think if if you have problems saying no, you have to learn that it's a legitimate word and where you draw lines. You're not rude, you're not crude, you just have to set boundaries to protect yourself. And if, on the other hand, you don't do enough for people, then I think also you need to say, what can I do? Often people like that don't have good relationships, and they really know that, and that's when they want to try to reach out and make a better world for themselves and for others.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Great points there. Dr. John Braccio with our weekly psychological segment, Psychologically Speaking. Dr. Braccio with Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing. Dr. Braccio, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure to be with you, my friend. Bye-bye.
And you are listening to the 1320 WILS Morning Wake Up. Rich Earl here with you, filling in for Dave Akerly. More straight ahead here this morning. Stick around. This is More Compelling Talk Radio, 1320 WILS.